What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the Discipline Priest. I know a lot of people have been really excited about playing it. It's been a very popular spec to be playing as of this patch. So I want to get a video out to you guys. I'm going to try to keep this as quick as possible, just showing you how the heck do you heal on this class, okay? It's very different from other healers. If you are a DPS main, got to know a little bit on the healing side, but it is very favorable to come from if you're coming from a healer perspective or DPS perspective. So let's get right into it. I'm going to show you guys the talent build, the talents that I'm currently playing for my healing spec, the basics of healing, and then I'm going to do a quick commentary over a solo shuffle match. Solo shuffle has been going extremely well, and I think this has a lot of potential in it coming up this season. I've played 2 solo shuffles. I went 6-0. I can probably tell you I probably went 6-0 probably twice the entire season last season. So it's feeling better. I'll tell you that much. So all right, let's get right into it here. For the talents that I'm playing, granted, you can definitely switch some of this stuff up. You know, a lot of people, the class side is not set in stone. There's a lot of stuff you can change around. So like there's some matchups where you want more fade, you want fade on a shorter cooldown, you don't need mind games, you want double death, maybe you don't need MD. Some people like playing leech. You know, if you're getting trained, maybe you want to play angelic bulwark and light's inspiration. Kind of up to you to change these things. This is just kind of what my basic tree is. Spec tree, again, there are rooms to change, but I think this is I think probably this would be the cookie cutter build for most people. I personally like to switch out for Twilight Equilibrium. That's my personal preference, and I'll tell you why in a second. But this is, I think, going to be kind of the cookie cutter healing build. It's a good balance of atonement and healing. You will be able to do pretty decent damage, which is surprising. To how much damage you're able to do in these healing builds. That's why I'm kind of excited, because I have like an addiction to doing damage as a healer. I have a problem, but being able to actually play this healing build, I'm actually able to still do decent damage and contribute to the fight, which makes it fun, aka motivation or incentive for healers. So let's get right into it. Otherwise, PvP talents, Inner Light and Shadow, that's my personal choice. Phase Shift and Radiance. Most people, you'll see a lot of people playing this, or either maybe Arc, if they want to play more on the defensive side, Archangel. And rare cases, you know, the only talent that I would change personally is I change Phase Shift sometimes if I don't need Phase Shift. So like you're versing just like, now that you can't Phase Shift the spell AF-lock dots, like let's say you're versing like AF Ellie or something. Yes, Phase Shift could be good for blocking fears, but I would like to rely on myself for getting deaths off on those fears and running something like Catharsis or Dark Arc otherwise to help your team win. And Catharsis can do an extremely large amount of healing versus like AF-locks. So just be mindful of that. But this is kind of the basics that I use. People ask the difference between Inner Light and Shadow. I always start in most of the game I'm in Inner Shadow. If I feel like the game's going to go into mana, like around 50% mana, it's still not ending, it's going a pretty slow game, I'm going to switch to Inner Light. You just got to be kind of mindful of the situation and adapt to it. Okay. Yep. Otherwise, okay. So the basics of healing. It's very simple, guys. Okay. In a perfect world, things are going to change, obviously. But in a perfect world, all you have to do is you're going to keep up your. Let me just do this really quick so I can see a frame. Start group. So you're going to keep up atonement. Okay. I keep up my atonement on my target and press shield on cooldown. Outside of that, I'm going to be dotting targets. Okay. And then on cooldown, I'm penancing. If you have time, you always want to priority using it offensively so that you can spread these dots for more healing. It's like, think of Purge of the Wicked like a rejuvenation. Every dot you have out is more rejuvenation healing. Like as you can see, the more dots I have out here, I spread more. The healing is more like it's a hot. Okay, so that's literally how it works. Outside of that, you want to just make sure you're keeping your shields up, shielding on cooldown, and keeping up radiance on targets that are losing health. Okay, you don't have to go out of your way to just randomly heal things that aren't getting hit. Don't waste your time. If you need to do that, I would just throw a renew on a target like that. And yeah, that's it. Because of the one other caveat is if you are starting to take more damage, you want to be throwing in flash shields as a priority. Okay, there's a spell that I swear more than half of the Disc Priests that play this game do not know about. It's called From Darkness Comes Light. Okay, if you can maintain your dots, look how fast this thing stacks. This will stack to potentially increase your next flash shield by 50%, which is freaking a lot. Let me tell you, it's a lot. Okay, you know, being able to throw that, there's a 226 non-crit heal. Like that saved my butt many of times. So keeping your dots up will reward you. offensively and defensively. Okay, you're able to get a little bit of dot pressure, dot damage out. You're able to get more healing out from like that hot perspective, and you're also able to get bigger flash shields. All right. Oh, and Radiance. Radiance is a little bit weird now because it's linked to Harsh Discipline. So I do sometimes overheal on Radiance. Like, let me show you a game, for example, here. Okay, my 40% of my Radiance healing was overhealed. I am a little bit more flex, I don't know, a little more risky, I guess, with my Radiances. I do kind of overheal on them quite a bit, just because if I have 2 charges up, I'll try to use it just so that I can get the bigger penances. If you find, like, you'll see this in the beginning of my games, I usually start Inner Light. I'll prop double Radiance, and then I'll switch to Inner Shadow right after that, so I can start off the game with a fat penance. Typically, you're going to get your mana back if you could just sit out of the game for a little bit, just for a few seconds. But it's a really cool way to start the game with a lot of pressure. And Radiance, you gotta be careful with it. Okay, if you are using it too much for when you don't need it, you're gonna yourself. But in Shuffle specifically, you don't have to be so cautious. Likely the game is not going to come down to mana in terms of Shuffle. Okay, in 3s, you do got to be more cautious on the Radiances, and especially in 2s. All right, so just be mindful of the game and how the pacing of the game is going. If you feel like the game is going to be ooming, do not be overhealing with all your Radiances. Okay, just use them as needed. You know, but if you don't want to be sitting on 2 charges all the time, because you want to actually have big penances as well, because the penances can be crazy for healing. I think that's about it in terms of the basics of healing. Oh, and then just one last thing, if you do want to contribute to oh no, sorry, I didn't talk about Twilight Equilibrium. Twilight Equilibrium. Okay, so Twilight Equilibrium, the reason I do run this is for penance. Twilight Equilibrium in general is worse this season because there's less shadow spells, but it's also better because it's easier to use. Okay, the only thing that you do that actually does damage is Purge the Wicked and Penance. Most specifically Penance. Okay, you can min-max it with Purge of the Wicked by, you know, casting a shadow spell before you Purge the Wicked, but that's not really required. Just I would say, if you do want to run this, which I recommend at least trying, just cast a shadow spell before every single penance. Priority for Mind Blast, so you want to Mind Blast into penance ideally, because that's going to give you Power of the Dark Side and Schism, which makes your penance a lot stronger. But if you don't have that, cast Mind Games into penance. If you're not playing Mind Games, cast Death and then into penance. Just always cast a shadow spell before your penances, and you're going to see such a large difference in damage and healing. Like, this is my damage breakdown. It's Purge of the Wicked, Penance, and then Shield Reflect. Mind Blast is garbage now for damage. Mind Games is garbage damage. Everything else stinks for damage. Smite stinks. Everything's bad. The only thing that matters is Purge the Wicked and Penance. So like I said, just before you press every, you know, keep your dots up ideally. You're going to, because you want to have your dots up so that you can spread it. Okay, so let's say I dot this target. I'm going to Mind Blast into Penance. That's all you need to do offensively. Okay. At the, you know, you can fill it with smites and shit, but that's it. And like I said, you can min-max the death, the Purge of the Wickeds with Twilight Equilibrium, and how I would do that. So that, let's say that we come out of the gates in the game, I see a target. I typically don't need death in the opener, so I'm going to pop a death and then Purge of the Wicked. So now this penance in this Purge of the Wicked is now going to be 15% stronger, and then I can spread it. Well, I didn't use Mind Blast. Hold on. Let's say, wait for this to reset here. So I'll death the target, then I'm going to Purge of the Wicked, and then I'm going to Mind Blast, and then I'm going to Penance. That's my ideal opener every single game. So now I'm going to have empowered penances, empowered Purge of the Wicked, and an empowered Penance, and spreading that Purge of the Wicked for more damage. All right. And okay. So that's in terms of the basic rotation. In terms of cooldown usage, I'm gonna keep this specific to solo shuffle, because I think that's what most people are going to be playing. So you have 2 charges of PS. You have Rapture, Dome, and Void Shift, and Desert Prayer. Desert Prayer, I'm not even going to really talk about. Just you're taking damage, just use it to help you out with the healing a little bit. Pain Suppression, you have 2 charges. Try to use one. Always use one early. I always try to use 1 PS early. Excuse me, and use Rapture relatively early. Okay. Reason why, you want to get Pain Suppression on cooldown, because that's a really, really good cooldown for you. I would say Dome is better to use early in certain situations. So like DKs, anything with a fat AoE damage with you have more than 1 target stacked, might as well use the barrier instead of the Pain Suppression. But get that Pain Suppression on cooldown. The second they start popping, like a Druid opens with Incarn, press PS, even if they're 100% health. Help your team stay offensive. That's the whole point of Discipline Priest, right? And then secondly, Rapture, using it for that same motive. Again, let's say, well, I'll use Incarn for example. A Druid uses Incarn. and you're gonna get, or maybe an affliction lock. You see soul rots going out, damage start going even before you start taking damage. Pop those shields. These shields are ridiculous. And just think of the psychology of it. If you're a DPS player and you're sitting at full health with massive with full health, are you going to be able to play more offensive and make more plays? Yes. If your team is just, if you're at 50, let's say you're at 40% health and you're saying big shields, not everyone can see the shields. Like, they're just looking at their health bar, and they're like, then they start playing scared because they think they're going to die. But they're fine because you have these massive shields on them. So just think about that. You just want to stay ahead of the game. You see big cooldowns, you're pressing your damage reduction stuff. Okay, you do not have big recovery heals. Ultimate Penance is kind of one now, but you really don't have big heals anymore, or you don't have big heals ever. You really just don't have that. You have damage reduction, so you just got to make sure you're staying ahead of the game with that, and use them preemptively. That's about it. Try to prio using pain suppression in stuns, because that's the only thing you can do in stuns, especially versus like rogues and stuff like that. And then, yeah. Oh, and I guess for Ultimate Penance, at least, Ultimate Penance is kind of a tricky one to utilize. In this game I'm going to show you guys, I did use it defensively, but I will kind of use it offensively and defensively depending on the situation. You just kind of have to gauge it and see what you need it for. If you're taking a lot of rot damage, I typically use it for defensive reasons. If I'm not taking a lot of damage, I'll use it offensively, because a lot of times it overheals. So, all right, let's get into the commentary really quick. I'm going to show you a solo shuffle round. Just to preface this solo shuffle round, this was that game I was showing here. Hopefully I didn't lose it yet. Okay. This was my healing breakdown. This is an ideal world. You want to have Atonement above Shield, but equal to or higher than Shield. That's what you want to be aiming for. Okay, because if you're able to do that and maintain your team, that means you're going to be doing pretty decent damage, and you're going to contribute to your team. There are some games where the pressure is just too much and the CC is too much, and then that your breakdown might look something more like this, where Shield is your best. You're doing a lot more defensive penances than your Atonement. Oh yeah, I apologize, I didn't add into that. Penancing, almost always prioritize offensive. If you really need to use it defensively, like your teammates are dying and you can't sit there and cast Flash Shield, use your penance defensively. Otherwise, try to always use it offensively, just for the reason that you can spread your dots. Okay? All right, let's watch this game. So getting into this game here, like I said, I double Radiance off the bat. I mean, I'm down 5% mana, but being able to get a really fast opener is awesome to see. I popped up Renews just to keep reminded. Radiance gives you shorter atonements, so your atonements will fall off faster, so sometimes putting a Renew over them or something might be a little better. Okay, so right off the bat here, this lock pops Infernal Stun. I think that was Infernal, right? I'm not crazy. Maybe that was, yeah, I think it was Infernal. So I popped a Dome immediately on him. And then we see Incarn coming out. So at this point here, I have my atonements up. Since I'm holding on to my big penance already, actually I already used that one. I'm going to be doing Mind Blast into penance. And then here, we're starting to take a crap ton of damage right off the bat. This is Incarn, big Chaos Bolts. We're not getting any stops on the bolts. So I did already PS, but we need more. So I'm going to have to pop that Rapture. I end up just getting lucky we top him up there. Trying to reposition here. Disc Priest, you want to reposition as much as you can to be out of line of sight and out of CC range of any of the DPS, so that you can free cast. This is a terrible spot for me to be in. This is why the pressure gets so bad. Personally, if I had the choice, my teammates would be on the lock. Okay, you don't want to be having to be getting split by your DPS. So I'm just popping these Rapture shields. During Rapture, make sure you're prioritizing your shields. Do not waste your time casting Mind Blast or something like that. Use those shields wisely. Okay, at this point, I was just running. I couldn't heal anymore, so I ended up just opting to go for a ultimate penance just to top my team off. So we're able to recover. This is a great example of using it defensively. If you don't have anything, like I burned so many cooldowns in that opener that I had nothing else to really heal them. So I just want to get an ultimate penance out just to recover so my team can get back to playing offensive. Okay, at this point, I get sheeped or slept again. I need to reposition here. This is a terrible spot to be in as a Disc Priest. You want a pillar away from the fight, always. Okay, so I am here. I didn't have a fear there, so I was looking to go for it. So I started just hitting what I can here, keeping up those, using Radiance, keeping up shields, trying to stay out of line here of the both of these targets to not get CC'd. I'm going to try to reposition here. I go for a root. Mind you, roots are actually pretty good to use into evokers, by the way. That means they can't burden embrace. It's actually kind of like a mini CC for them. Okay, again, just not in a good spot here. Ideally, DPS would be swapping targets, and I'm not sitting here like this. So Mind Blast Independence. Okay, I think I finally catch on that I need to reposition, so I'm going to take this pillar. Mind Games into Smite. At this point, we are doing pretty good on pressure here, so I'm actually able to do a little more damage, making him getting the smites out, shielding on cooldown, throwing those radiants out, flash shields when need be. Again, don't be so cautious with your mana in solo shuffle because the games aren't going to be that long. Another radiance. Now I'm holding on to, I have big penance here, so what am I going to do? I'm going to go for a mind blast into penance, spread those dots, so I've empowered everything, just chunking the damage out as much as possible. Throwing flash shields when need be, shielding. Okay, I did get a little bit of a glory of only versing one class with a kick. You know, I'm able to get out of those with gnome racial. But this is a ton of pressure coming out. Just to mind you guys, I am doing nearly 100k HPS with this damage. Okay, keeping those, make sure I spread, use penance again to spread the Purge of the Wickeds out. Making sure just being mindful of this positioning, man. So I had to jump over this side because I don't want to be in line of those free fears. Throwing out, again, just penances, shielding. This is my second rapture now. Reason I talked about using rapture early and PS early is that second rapture is going to be crucial. It's most likely going to come at a time that you really need it. So make sure you're getting those off pretty early here. Again, bad positioning from my end. I should not have run this way. I should have run the other way just so I'm out of line of sight of all this damage here. I wait for his Nullifying Shroud to fall off here. I get really lucky. I feared his Half Moon, his Chaos Bolt at the same time. I needed to get that off. But he does pop Nether. He gets cloned on it. Okay, continue to push in here. Mind games into Purge of the Wicked. Shielding. This is just such a terrible situation to be in. This lock is just free casting this whole game. But yeah, spreading those dots again with Purge of the Wicked, spamming these flash shields. This is, just to mind you, this is way more flash healing than you normally will ever see. This is just an insane amount of damage being taken. We got our second Incarn. I'm just trying to play as offensive as possible. You know, you got to be in the mindset of in solo shuffle, man. This game is coming down to the wire. I got no more mana. They got a ton of mana. I need to play offensive to close this game out. So I go for the big penance. I go for the Mind Blast into penance, and I go for a death out of that. And he lives barely the skin on his teeth with a meld. Guy gets low. I shift him even though he had his bubble. But he does go down, which was great. I apologize. That was kind of a shit show of a game. But hopefully you got an idea of what I was doing. You can always watch that back and slow it down. Yeah, that was kind of a shit show of a game. I didn't realize how bad that was going to be. So that game in general, I was flash healing way more than I thought I was going to. Let me go back to that game here. So this is just that game. I flash healed 14 times, which is more than I typically will. But because I'm keeping my dots up so well during that game, 287 ticks. That's a lot of stacks from Darkness Comes Light. Those flash heals are going to be way better than normal. Okay, so just keep mindful of that. But yeah, hopefully you guys got something out of that. I appreciate you guys watching. If you guys have any questions specifically to the healing of Disc Priest, just let me know in the comments, and I hope you guys see you guys in the next one. Peace out.